Yo, what's up, everybody? Bobby here with a slew of great gentlemen tonight, and we are going to be talking the game Final Fight. For those of you who are not familiar with Final Fight, it originally released in, Geno, we said 1989? Is that right?
89.
89 arcades. It is a side-scrolling beat 'em up. For those of you that are more younger than the rest of us, you might be familiar with the recent Streets of Rage 4 that came out. What was that, 2019? Or Streets of Rage 4? Well, it just came out within the last year or two.
I think it was last year.
It was just last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was okay.
And I know that one's particularly popular, but of course, Final Fight was all the rage back in the day. Is that the right word? Not the rage.
The streets of rage.
Yeah, all the rage.
Okay. Final Fight, because it did exist before Streets of Rage, and it was really the precursor to. Not that there hadn't been side-scrolling beat-em-ups, but it was the one that definitely garnered the most attention because of how refined it was. The controls were incredible. Even more importantly, the environments were highly detailed, and the characters, especially the protagonists, the most beautiful male versions of amazingness. I can't even think of the right words. Of these, how ridiculous these characters are, and how amazing, how much fun they were. And so we're going to be.
Adonises.
What was that?
The 16-bit Adonises.
There you go. 16-bit Adonis. That's what they all were. Especially Hagar. Oh, Mayor Hagar, my favorite.
Mayor Hagar.
So, I have with me tonight, over here to my left, I got my good friend Geno, as he waves from Oregon. To my right, I have our returning champion, Frank. He was our Kahoot champion last time. And below me to my right, I got the amazing Adonis Val. If anyone's an Adonis here.
That's right.
And to my bottom left, the most Mikeist of all the Mikes we know, Mike Prime. So, as stated, we are going to be talking Final Fight tonight, and that includes all games in the series, though, to be honest, we probably will be focusing a lot on the original game. And its ports as well. But there are multiple games in the series. We talked about Final Fight released in 89. There's two sequels, Final Fight 2, Final Fight 3, which were released only on the SNES. There's also a remake of sorts of the original Final Fight for the NES called Mighty Final Fight, done in a chibi-style version of characters. And then probably the Final Fight we're going to talk about the least is Final Fight Streetwise, which was released on the PS2 circa, what was that, 2002? Or was it later?
2005 or 6.
Oh, you're right. You're right. 2005 or 6, yeah. And it unfortunately did not meet expectations, not even close. It has a bit of charm, but not for the good things it does. The charm that it has is because of all the awful mistakes they made. So we will be talking about all of those to some extent. But first, we're going to do some trivia.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
All right, Final Fight quiz. Question number 1. Before being renamed, Final Fight was intended as a sequel to Street Fighter. What was its original title? Was it Street Fighter? Was it Street Fighter the Second? And everybody already answered. We picked Street Fighter the Second.
Street Fighter. Who said Street Fighter? Oh, the second. Okay.
Just put Street Fighter the Second. The correct answer, as you can all see, is Street Fighter 89. There's actually promotional art for it with that label as well.
You know, I gotta wonder, is there a beta copy of Final Fight with that title somewhere out there?
Yeah, you would think by now they would have found it because things leak all the time. Unfortunately, they probably just worked over it or it got deleted, you know?
Yeah, because there's screenshots in that promo you're talking about.
Yeah.
So somewhere out there that existed at one.
Yeah, sure did.
That would have been kind of cool to see.
All right, question number 2. What American film is rumored to be the inspiration for the original Final Fight? Is it Boys in the Hood, Predator, Streets of... And everyone already answered.
Hey, we're missing
Everybody
somebody.
knows this one.
Yeah, I dropped for some reason.
Oh, Val dropped?
No.
All right. The code is in the bottom right. Do you need me to read it to you?
No, I got it.
All right. So for the audience at home, I wrote it down as rumored because it's never been officially confirmed. Plus, the original, what's the word? Not producer, but developer.
Creator? Oh.
Well, the developer of the game who worked on it at the time, he stated that personally, he was basically the director of the game, that he personally didn't know the movie Streets of Fire. But he did say they were watching a lot of movies at that time, so they probably found inspiration from all kinds of things. So neither confirmed nor denied. But what's the big thing that the main character's name in there is also Cody, right?
It's
Yeah. Tom Cody, yeah. I mean, he looks a hell of a lot like Cody. So.
Yeah, he does.
I don't think he does.
Well, I mean, he's not dressed like him, but like his face and everything, he looks very much like the character in the game.
I think that's where a lot of it came from. But I mean, it's true. There are tons of 80s American movies that a lot of people were watching at the time. So the inspiration can come from any of these things, especially Boys in the Hood. I mean, come on. Boys in the Hood, guys. Holy Final Fight. All right. War Was Begun is in the lead. Geno's in second. Yo Bag Me's in third. Ween Dude in... Yo Bag Me 2. Oh, because you had to drop
Yeah, it won't let me draw. It won't let me draw.
I forgot it doesn't let you... It doesn't connect to the previous one.
That's all
We'll
right.
add up the points.
Yeah.
Final Fight 3 was developed by Capcom. True? False? There's a Final Fight 3? Or a little bit of both? This one may have been a little bit tricky to answer. The correct answer is false. I was doing some research, and apparently Final Fight 3 was given to an outside developer that was not credited, which was actually not an unusual practice, especially back in the day. For a lot of you guys at home may not know this, especially on the NES, a lot of people who worked on games didn't receive credit. As a matter of fact, Castlevania, for example, the reason there's credits at the end of Castlevania is because they treated it like a movie. And if you ever defeat Castlevania, you'll see Dracula or the monsters are given the names of kind of like they do a play off of Boris Karloff for one of the actors' names. And so it wasn't really until later on where credits became an expectation or something that was mandatory. So it wasn't unusual for Japanese companies to be like, they would hire an outside developer to make the games, but you never knew it was made by someone else because they were never given credit for it. And that was the case with Final Fight 3.
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that either.
Like,
I had to do research.
Based, man, that's not fair.
No, it really isn't. I'm glad it's changed. So Geno apparently knew that, though. So either he got lucky or he knew. Which was it, Geno?
I knew.
All right. Going on to question 4. Of the Final Fight games listed below, which was the only one to appear in arcades officially? And I think this one's pretty easy, because we actually talked about it a little while ago.
I actually don't know.
And that apparently Mike shows that.
What? Mike, come on, man.
Dude, this is not my series.
Get off the
To be
podcast.
honest, I shouldn't be in this podcast because I did not follow this series as closely as everyone else did.
But look, now we're going to get great reactions from you about, wow, I didn't know that. And I should play this game now.
Yeah.
All right. Geno maintains his lead. War Was Begun in second. And Yo Bag Me 2 is in third place.
Coming for you.
Final
Cody.
question. Upon the debut of the villain Poison, there has been debate about their gender. Unofficially, Poison's gender is transgender male, female, none of your goddamn business, or transgender female.
I have to go with that one.
Man.
With the answer, but I have to go with that one.
I disagree with that because the first thing they literally said was that it was a pre-op male,
Yeah.
So,
and then they said that it's up to the player to decide.
this is where I'm coming back and saying, officially, Capcom has no stance. The statements have come from employees of Capcom, but officially Capcom themselves has no stance on it. So you take it the way it is, which is why the correct answer really is none of your goddamn business. Why is her gender? Why should her gender matter?
Unofficially, then all of those would be correct because it's unofficial.
Right, but it's unofficial, so it's none of your goddamn business. So you know.
Doesn't it also matter if it's Capcom of Japan versus US?
No,
Yeah.
because even then, officially from Capcom, whether it's Japan or US, they have no official stance. It was Yoshinori Ono, right? The guy who worked on Street Fighter 4 and 5, who first came out and stated that in America, it's post-op. In Japan, it's pre-op. And then later on, they made him retract his statement. So officially, Capcom has no opinion on the matter. And, you know, out of respect for members of the LGBTQ community, as they state, none of your goddamn business what their gender is. So you can think of Poison however you like, but ultimately it doesn't really matter.
I
So
wonder if someone just incorrectly like called her a guy or whatever, and they just couldn't explain it, and that's where all this came from.
No, but it was actually somewhat addressed when the original Final Fight came out.
Also,
Well, kind of like what Bobby was saying. Like there was talk about it from the employees, but it wasn't ever like, oh, you're just beating up a woman. No, there was always like some just.
did they do that because they didn't want it to be like they're beating up a woman?
right, because
I've heard
they're
that before.
America had a very strong stance about beating women in games. Or beating women, period, hopefully. But specifically because it's in games.
Not overall.
Yeah, well, we're very, I was going to say hedonistic, which actually isn't wrong, but hypocritical. We're very, very much hypocrites here. But the point is originally in the States, you were beating up a woman in Final Fight. So in order to prevent the issue of beating up a woman in Final Fight, it was like, oh, well, no, you're beating up a guy who's dressed as a woman. And then later on, the discussion came up further about whether, Poison was a person who was transgender, whether they decided that they were male who felt that they were female, or that they were someone who had gone through the actual surgical procedure, or the not the surgical, the what do you call it, hormonal procedure of transitioning to a different gender. And but at the end of the day, when we talk about people's gender, I go back to it's none of your goddamn business what someone's gender is. So that's why the question came up the way it was. What's up?
It's crazy to me that they had to make up that excuse to bring it over to America, and it sparked this whole other debate that evolved into what it is now.
That ultimately shouldn't matter anyway, because I mean the whole point of the game is to enjoy it, not to worry about what someone's gender is.
I never cared like who I was beating up when I played the games.
Mike just hates everybody.
All right. Well, thank you guys for taking the quiz. Let's go ahead and switch back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to move forward with our questions for our podcast today. First question we always started with, of course, is what games in the series have you played? And I'm going to go ahead and let Geno lead us off on this one. Please share with us, what have you played in the Final Fight series?
I think the 1 through 3, Mighty Final Fight, Streetwise. I've played them all. I mean, I don't even consider like advanced to be an actual game, so we can just kind of.
It's a report.
Yeah, I mean it's not good. so yeah, I mean 1 through 3 plus the Sega CD plus pretty much everything except for like the really really outdated ports like the what is it, is it a Commodore 64 or
the ZX Spectrum, the Sharp 68000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that
No,
was
the
different,
Sharp.
though.
The Sharp 68. If I could play that, oh man, yeah. But yeah. Just about everything except for those really old ones.
So why do you bring attention to the Sharp, Val? Is that port particularly good?
Well, that's actually arcade perfect. It was I think what I've read is that the Sharp 68000 was the dev unit used for the CPS-1 hardware at Capcom. So that's why those games like Street Fighter 2 on the Sharp is arcade perfect. It's exactly the same game almost. I mean, there's some limitations as far as like RAM. So there's some like animations that are missing in the background and stuff like that. But I've played Final Fight on the Sharp, like emulated, and it looks exactly like the arcade.
So when Val says CPS1, he's referring to the arcade hardware that was used to develop many of Capcom's arcades from the late 80s and early 90s until CPS2, which was... What games were CPS2?
That's...
95. I think it was Alpha.
Yeah, so Street Fighter Alpha was one of the first, right?
The very first one, I think, is actually Super Street Fighter
2.
Oh, okay.
But I thought it was 2. Was it 2 or 2 Turbo?
Both. Super is whatever the one that had the Super title in it. That's the very first CPS2 game.
Okay.
That I know of.
But yeah,
then it would have been
arcade
94.
Sorry?
It would have been 94.
94?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I remember because MK2 was out at the same time.
So, Val, you've played the Sharp version, but what other Final Fight games have you played?
So I've played all the... I've played, obviously, 1 through 3. I've played all the ports, except for the Game Boy Advance one. I don't think I played that one. I almost bought it, but I was like, okay. So I played the Super Nintendo one, the Super Nintendo version with Guy.
Guy.
Final Fight Guy. The Sega CD, which is actually my favorite version of Final Fight. The Sharp version, Mighty Final Fight, the chibi one. 2, 3, Revenge. No one mentioned that yet. That one-on-one fighting game. I think it was on the Saturn.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on the Saturn. It's terrible.
Japan.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one. And then like all the other stuff, like Muscle Bomber Duo with Hagar and the Alpha series with Cody and Guy and Poison and all them. So
Street Fighter.
There one called Slam Masters or something.
That's what I meant to say.
It was the Japanese version for Saturday Night Slam Masters.
Yeah, same game. But yeah, I've played most of them. I've played 1, 2, and like those I've played several times. So I know those very well.
Yeah, there's a lot of games in this series with ports and everything. Because like Val mentioned earlier, Final Fight Guy. For those of you at home, the original Final Fight on Super Nintendo didn't have 2-player, and you could only play as Hagar or Cody. And then later on, they released a version called Final Fight Guy, which... Did they replace
Cody? Yeah.
They replaced Cody with Guy, right?
Yeah, it's just Guy and Hagar.
So it's just Guy and Hagar, okay.
Yeah.
Or Hagar, depending on whether how you pronounce it.
It was a Japan-only release, and they brought it to the U.S. as a Blockbuster exclusive rental. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
You could only rent it. You couldn't buy it.
And for those of you youngins at home, Blockbuster was this building that had VHS tapes. Man, if we're gonna have to go back and explain all that, Google it.
It was like analog Netflix.
This is back when you had to go places to like rent
to do stuff,
and games and stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, Frank. What about you?
Wait.
Oh, what?
Hold on. I just wanted to speak in defense of Final Fight Revenge, which I think is a spectacularly awesome game.
No, dude.
It's so disgusting that but it's so awesome in that way. Like, oh my gosh, like the finishing moves and stuff. Oh, that's a work of genius. So I'm just gonna throw that my 2 cents in there.
I have things to say, but I'll save them.
We'll edit that out, right, Bobby?
Yeah, that'll be edited out. Don't worry.
Of course I played, let's see, 1, which actually has like 4 different versions, because there's 1 the arcade, there's 1 of course the Super NES version, Final Fight, what's it called? Mighty Final Fight, sorry. And then what's it called? Final Fight CD. I'm like, to me, like those are like, they're kind of like different versions of the exact same game. Well, especially Mighty Final Fight, because the other ports are just like lesser ports. I did play the ROM of Final Fight Guy, but honestly, I don't like the Super NES port, simply because like if you played that first, you're just like, wow, this is so much like the arcade. And then when you actually play the arcade, you're like, wow, that Super NES port really was just lacking. But I mean, it wasn't even a hardware limitation. It's just they didn't, it came out so early in the lifespan of the SNES, so they didn't really know how to properly.
Well, it wasn't only that; it was rushed to be released in time for the holiday season.
Yeah, and it shows.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you can give him credit for the sprites, because even though it was rushed, it looks, except it's a little more washed out. It's not as colorful, but considering you didn't really see sprites that big on the Super Nintendo, they did a good job with that, with the rush subs they had, but the rest of it was just, obviously, they couldn't fine-tune it.
Yeah. So, 2 I did play. In all honesty, I think 2 for the first 3 games is the worst one by far because it is so boring. It is, like 1 has so much charm. 3, they brought, like the super moves in and special moves and the new characters, but 2 is so freaking boring. Like it's a chore to get through. I've only played through that game in its entirety one time, and I'll never do it again. I think it's the worst game by far. I never played Streetwise, but I've heard of its legacy from both you, Bobby, and from Geno. Let's see what else had come out. Final Fight Revenge. I've only ever seen gameplay of it, and then of course with the multiple cameos and all this stuff. Of course, I played the Street Fighter series with. Well, Alpha series is where they finally officially had both characters in the same game at least. And then there's random appearances like Hagar and Marvel 3 and what's it called? The Capcom Fighting Evolution that has Guy, but Final Fight proper, it was just those first 3 really.
And Mike, our least experienced Final Fighter here, what games have you played?
So, according to Frank, I've played the first one, but I have no memory of this whatsoever. The one that I remember the most is 3, and that's the one that I've played on Super Nintendo. That's the one I've played like a lot. It's a really awesome game, and I'll talk more about this in the second question. But I think the first time I saw it was at Frank's house when we were kids because he had the SNES card of it, and I don't know, it would just look really cool. And prior to that, the Final Fight 3, I had my arcade beat 'em up games were mostly like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and things like that. So seeing Final Fight 3 for the first time was just like, it looked so awesome on the Super Nintendo. But yeah, pretty much just 3 and I guess 1. But I I don't know. I don't remember 1 at all. I don't know why. I even looked at some screenshots and like playthroughs, and none of it looked familiar to me.
That sounds so weird for you to say that. Like that game's such a staple of our of our generation, and you're saying you never played it? It's just
the only thing I can think of is that I'm not from the same universe that all of you are in. Like, I don't know. I missed out on that one for some reason. So one of these nights we need to do a playthrough of it.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, sure. That'd be great.
Well, it's part of that beat 'em up package, right? That we bought, Frank. So
it's the Capcom beat 'em up bundle. It's on PS3, or I'm sorry, it's on PS4, and it goes on sale pretty often, so you can get it for like $7 at most.
And we can play it online, which is great.
Oh yeah, that's literally what I was going to ask right now.
So I was going to say, if you guys want to make it interesting, there is a hack of the arcade version that actually lets you play all 3 characters at once. Yeah. So if we can make that networkable somehow on an emulator, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, we could always just, we actually can hang out in person.
Yeah, we could also do that.
I mean, I guess we could.
See you in person.
We're getting too used to the COVID era.
Right. We haven't broken away from it yet. So I have played the initial 3 games. I agree with Frank that Final Fight 2 was bad. It was very boring. Final Fight 3 was probably the one I played the most, though. I rented it a lot. I never owned it, but I rented it a lot and played it. I loved it. And I really enjoyed the regular Super Nintendo Final Fight, but I did understand its shortcomings because I was very disappointed to find out I couldn't play with another friend, which is part of the reason why I didn't play it very often. But I played at the arcade every chance I got when I saw it there. I never played Mighty Final Fight. I've always wanted to because I am a huge fan of River City Ransom. And I know Mighty Final Fight is a little bit more like that because like you can gain XP and you can level up and gain abilities. But anyway, Slam Masters, of course, I've played through emulation. First time I played a Final Fight Streetwise was with Geno because he bought it and he's like, hey, try this out. And no, not instant regret, but definitely understanding its shortcomings. There, like I said, there are little things about that I really wanted to like, but unfortunately it didn't reach the level we wanted to. And of course, all the Street Fighters, whether it be the Alpha 4 or the versus games like Marvel vs. Capcom, where we get to play as those games. So let's iron that out as well. So starting with Alpha, who was the first Final Fight character introduced?
I think it's Guy.
Okay. So Guy was the first one. Then when did they introduce Cody?
That was in Alpha 3, yeah.
Okay. Now,
Okay, but in Alpha, what's it called? That's the protagonist because Sodom, he does come out.
Yeah.
And is in 1 or 2?
Yeah, he's in Alpha 1.
he does come out in Alpha 1? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And then in 2, you got Rolento as well.
Oh, so I thought Sodom and Rolento were introduced in Alpha 3. So I got those wrong.
No.
Okay. All right. So then you had villains, Sodom and Rolento. What did they call them in America? Because Sodom wasn't Sodom.
It was Katana.
Katana. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Rolento.
Right. Rolento stayed the same. So that was it in Alpha, right? There were no other Final Fight characters until Poison or
Hugo.
Hagar. Oh, Hugo in Third Strike. That's right.
Well, in Second Impact.
Second Impact?
appeared in
Okay.
Second Impact.
So just again for you guys at home, just like with many Street Fighter games, Street Fighter 3 had 3 versions. First one was, what was the first one called?
Oh, it's just Next Generation.
Next Generation. Then Second Impact was the second version, and then Third Strike was the third one. So Hugo was introduced in the second version, Second Impact. And then
Hold on. Let me tip my glasses.
go.
Technically,
New generation.
New Generation.
Yeah, New Generation.
New
No,
Gen-
no,
Technically, Poison was introduced with him too.
But
Yeah,
she wasn't
because, right,
playable.
Yeah, she's
wasn't
not playable, but
playable,
she's there.
But she's there as his what would you call
Manager.
him? Manager. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
background with Hugo's he's a wrestler and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he goes straight, so to speak.
So then
There's actually, sorry, I was gonna mention one. I don't think we mentioned it before, but Mackie is in
3 Max.
which one?
She's in Alpha 3 Max and in Capcom vs SNK2.
Yeah, I was gonna say SNK2.
okay.
Yeah.
you know
She's
what?
not
I never
very
really
good.
I didn't even make that connection. I forgot that she was a Final Fight character.
That's because she's in the worst Final Fight game
Yeah.
of the first of the trilogy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's in 2. Okay, so then Hagar made an appearance in Slam Masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saturday Night Slam Masters. And then Poison was a playable character in Street Fighter 4, but she didn't come out until
Ultra.
Ultra Street
yeah.
Fighter 4. But Hugo is also in Street Fighter Ultra Street Fighter 4, right?
Yeah,
So he's
they both came out
he's
then.
also there.
Yeah, I think Ultra has the most Final Fight characters
because it also has
it's-
Guy and Cody.
Yes, and then
Rolento's in there too. Right? Yeah.
5 Final Fight characters in Ultra.
Okay. The only other game that featured Hagar as a playable character was Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
then
Ultimate.
and Ultimate Marvel vs. Yeah. And then of course Street Fighter 5 has Poison.
Poison, Cody, and Abigail.
Yeah.
Abigail, that's right. Abigail's first time Final Fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Final Fight character in a fight and in a game.
In a non-Final Fight game. Yeah.
Right.
Get away.
All right. So as you can see, there's a lot of Final Fight love in Capcom for those characters. Unfortunately, not enough love in order to make more Final Fight games, though there is a rumor, which we're going to talk about the possibility of a remake for Final Fight.
Like,
But,
there's more cameos than actual games.
What's that?
There's more cameos of characters in other games than they have of actual.
Oh yeah.
They have
by far.
That's true. Okay, so let's move up into our next question. So, what made Final Fight stand out above other beat 'em ups of the time? So, as we stated before, Final Fight was not the first beat 'em up, but it was the one that stood out to us the most. And here we're going to talk about why. So, with this question, I'm going to ask Frank to lead off. Tell us why it stuck with you, Frank.
To me, I think what made it stand out were the very memorable large characters you know, because they were huge. I mean, you think about like Double Dragon, Renegade, and you know, like Narc, you know, all these arcade games that came before it. The characters were always so small, so small. But then you got Final Fight, and I mean, they're on the screen. I mean, you know, it's like a good portion of the screen, and they're so bright and they're so distinct as as you were waxing poetic about how beautiful they are, Bobby, before we actually got started.
Digital Adonises.
Digital Adonises. Yeah, like those characters, they stand out. They really stand out in the beat 'em up genre. And I'm gonna stop there because I really want to hear what everybody else like thinks what makes Final Fight stand out. Val?
I guess I'll go. Or no, Val, you can go.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, actually, that was going to be the first thing I was going to say. Frank's talking about the sprites, but it's not just how big they are, but how memorable everybody is in the game. Because those characters have personality, right? And it's not just Cody, Guy, and Hagar. It's the villains too. Like you got freaking Andori in there, who's an homage to Andre the Giant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing that character and thinking, man, that guy looks freaking scary as hell. I don't. It just and everybody from the low level characters to the bosses, they just look so cool. But for me also, this might be an unpopular opinion with this group. I actually don't really like Double Dragon because I don't think it plays very well. So to me, Final Fight was the first playable beat 'em. I know.
I'm sorry. We're gonna have to end this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's over. You're not in the group anymore. We're not friends.
Don't worry, Geno. I'll edit it out.
It was.
You're forgiven this one time, Val.
Come on.
Totally understand because, dude, seriously, that original arcade slowdown fucking sucks.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about is the slowdown. Like it's not a very good
optimized at all.
Yeah,
hardware it was developed on.
So you go from that to Final Fight, which I mean, it plays perfectly.
No slowdown.
Yeah. That's pretty much how. That's pretty much what I can say about it. It's just it was a game that was so much fun to play, and it was leagues above its predecessors.
How about you, Mike?
I just liked the way it played, like the mechanics of, and keep in mind I'm talking about Final Fight 3, but just the way it played, it was so fun. The moves, the super moves, like all the cool stuff that they had in there. Going from older games like Turtles and Double Dragon, then going to Final Fight 3 with like these awesome, like huge characters, like Frank said, and all the villains too. Like, and expanding on what Val said, in the other beat 'em ups I played, they were always generic, but in the Final Fight 3, they all like. I wanted to know more about who all the individual villains were. It seemed like they purposely put a lot of time into designing those characters, like as if they all had their own backstories and stuff. And it was like I was like marveling at all the individual characters too, and yeah, what's his name, Andre or
Andor.
Yeah, he scared the hell out of me too, Val. Like when he came on the screen, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and he charges at you. It's like, oh shit.
Then when there's two of them at one time, oh shit.
Oh yeah, that's brutal.
You got the gray ones and the gold ones and the blue ones.
Oh, geez.
Yellow.
The yellow, yeah.
You know, I actually, well, because I know that you have a limited experience with it, Mike. But I'm just gonna disagree with you because with Final Fight 3, I think the issue was that a lot of the bosses weren't very memorable to me.
Like the bosses or just the individual characters?
Oh, are you talking about the
individual characters?
The protagonists, like the
the people you fight in the game, like all the enemies.
In 3, well, yeah, I disagree with you. I think they're very derivative of like the first 2 games, and then also
I don't have that experience though. So to me though, that was like the first game. So
and that's why I was saying But another thing that I had an issue with Final Fight 3, kind of to get off topic really quick, is that with the first game, every boss encounter, like the music would change, and you knew that something was going to happen. But like in Final Fight 3, they don't even have like specific compositions written for the bosses, so it's just like you're fighting another enemy, and then the stage just ends. So
it's gonna go into saying that like the original the enemies that you fight are what I liked, but the bosses, like I don't even remember what the names of the bosses are. I think the final boss was just named Black or something.
yeah.
I kind of like the main bosses in the game aren't very memorable, but I'm mainly talking about the characters themselves. But also keep in mind, I never played. Well, I don't remember playing the other Final Fight games, so to me that's the first game that I ever saw any of those in. So when I say they're unique, I'm comparing them to older beat 'em ups that I played that weren't Final Fight.
I think that's kind of a testament to just the style, the art style and design of Final Fight in general, that even if you played a game that some may consider one of the, weaker than the original, that regardless, that still stuck with you, that art style, that design, the way those characters acted, and then of course the challenge of fighting through those enemies, because even though the game was done by a different studio, it was still done with the same engine that the other two Final Fights were based on, as far as for the Super Nintendo. So they didn't have to build it up from scratch. It was built using those same assets and just improved upon.
And just to like expand a little bit, there's a reason that there's characters from those games in all of the other fighting games, and like there's a reason Poison's in Street Fighter and Hagar's like in like a bunch of different fighting games, just because of those characters, like how well developed they were.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any other like beat 'em up that has characters, that many characters in other games.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree with all of you. I think one of the coolest things about it is that it's like such a moment in time. I mean, I can trace. I mean, now that I'm like old now, like everything is about being a moment in time, right? So like, it really encapsulates like 1989 in a 7-Eleven, and then there being like this actual epidemic of like gangs and violent crime, and like kind of also how the media portrayed everything, and it's like this perfect distillation of all those elements plus pop culture, and like I don't know, so yeah, it's so memorable just even to look at, and you can see all these things, and yeah, and the other thing too is that it actually feels really kind of, I love Double Dragon obviously, but Double Dragon kind of hints at crime, because it's also kind of cartoony.
Yeah. And
so is Final Fight, but Final Fight has this like edge to it that is really kind of seedy. You're going through like, the restrooms and some like, and there's a lot of stuff. It's all implied, but it's all like right in front of you. It's really cool. I think up to that point, that was the first kind of game where it really had an edge, and that music is incredible. Just on its own. So I don't think they made a single bad move in that game at all. So yeah, that'd be my thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you fight a corrupt cop.
Yeah, Eddie E.
Right.
Eddie E.
Right. I mean, where else are they doing that? And you fight like like the guys are menacing too. I mean, not just Andore, but like Gado with like the
knives.
With the knives.
Yeah.
Like that, you're going through a bar, like you're going through a bathroom with sexy spray painted, so there was that stuff going on in this game.
Well,
in that universe.
There was so much detail in those levels. It was ridiculous how dense everything was.
The barking white dog, you guys can picture it on the Bay Area.
Yeah. I actually really love when you're on the subway and you can see the other subway train pass behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that that little detail is just like so cool. Like, wow, that's awesome.
Assuming this is all from Final Fight 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go play Final Fight 1, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it was just there was nothing like it. There was just nothing like, and I think to this day there hasn't been something that has been just that
Impactful.
Yes, I mean they've been great ones. There was like Alien versus Predator. There was like any number of great beat 'em ups, but that one was just so like a changing of, quality, complete. It's just I can't think of a better one.
And again, for those of you youngins out there actually is an Alien versus Predator beat 'em up. Go play it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's awesome.
I think it was it one of the last Capcom beat 'em ups released in the arcade?
Yeah, I think so.
There was one more. I think it was called Battle Circuit. I think that's the last one. But I think that was 97, and what was AVP, like 1994?
94. Yep.
So that was pretty much the end of it. So you can definitely see how they took all their knowledge into the end there. So
yeah.
Well, you know what? Like, for me, especially Final Fight 1 in particular, it felt very cinematic. Super cinematic, because like I would always kind of relate things that I'm watching to movies, things that I was playing to movies and stuff like that, and then I would do the same for other things. So then when I would watch like action movies, I'm thinking of like a story progression like Final Fight. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they got to get to the final boss, and they're fighting. Like another one that really reminded me of not necessarily Final Fight, but a beat 'em up movie was Double Impact with Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he plays the twins.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's like a very pseudo beat 'em up movie, and I still love that movie just because of that fact alone, and because like you said, Bobby, there's so much detail in the backgrounds. They're doing so much storytelling without actually telling the story, other than the intro, attract mode. So it just it is just so stylized and so cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it stands out from anything else.
Out of that.
What's up, Mike?
They should have made a game out of the movie. I don't know if they did or not, but
Double Impact.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that ship has sailed.
And if the game was anything like the movie, it wouldn't have been very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie was not good, but it's still entertaining to me.
I like that movie. It's just an action movie.
Yeah.
All right, so I think it's time to move on to our next question. So this one is about personal taste. Who is your favorite character and why? We'll start off with Geno. Favorite character. Doesn't matter, protagonist, antagonist, favorite character.
I mean, I don't know if that's really a question. Like, there's only, the fact is that, well, okay, you can make the case that Guy is cooler, but Cody, man, like Cody's the coolest shit. Like the Great White Hope. So you gotta love it. But yeah, I mean, Guy's pretty damn cool though. I mean, shit. I like Hagar, but when you're like 10 years old, you're not like, let me play the 40-year-old man. Like
shit, I was.
Yeah.
My whole goal was to grow up to be a 40-year-old Hagar. I got the 40-year-old part right.
That was my thing. I was like, he looks a little long in the tooth, man. I want someone like, who's like me. Like, why would I think that? Because none of these characters are like me, but I don't know. So yeah,
good pick.
Cody all the way, and all of you are wrong if you pick somebody else.
All right, Val. What about you? Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Frank?
No, I said for Final Fight 1, I totally agree with Geno. And what's it called? One reason I really loved Cody was his design, because like Guy, he has, that Bushido, like kind of ninja outfit. Hagar, he's walking awkwardly like this the whole time. I'm like, I don't know what, but like Cody has like kind of the most animation to his walk. Yeah. Like you can see like the definition in his t-shirt. and like his stances. I really loved his character design, and he's the one I would normally pick. Because Guy was fast, but he was weak. And then Hagar was just too slow. He had the pile driver, but he was too slow. But Cody just looked so cool in that first game. Just that the blue jeans and the t-shirt. In 2, they all suck except for Hagar. And in 3, that's one reason I'm really happy in Street Fighter 5. They brought her to the Street Fighter side of that universe was Lucia. Because she's actually my favorite to play in Final Fight 3 because she has the most amount of moves.
Yes, she does.
And her super move is the coolest out of all of them. I mean, they're all pretty cool. Mine is Dean. I mean, they really dropped the ball with that character.
Yeah.
But
Dean sucks.
she's kind of like the pseudo Chun-Li in Final Fight 3, and she's got all these awesome kick combos and stuff like that. Sadly, I don't really play her in 5 because she's just not the kind of character I like to play.
So then, Frank, you're with Geno then that your favorite character would be Cody.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So then, Val, who would be yours?
Yeah, playable. It's Cody because he is the most balanced character in the game. He's the only one that can use the knife without throwing it. Like he can actually stab people with the knife. I really love playing as Hagar, especially doing like pile driver combos. But yeah, he is too slow. It's not feasible to play as Hagar and try and beat the game on 1 credit. It's just not an easy task. With Cody, it's totally doable. And Guy, yeah, I guess he could do it too. But yeah, Cody, and I think what Frank was talking about with the design, he's like the everyman. Like he looks like he just walked out of the gym and decided to kick some ass. Like he's just dressed like a normal dude. And I think we touched on that on the King of Fighters podcast with Terry Bogard. Yeah. It was the same thing. Like I like that character so much because he looks just like a dude that just walked off the street and got into a brawl and started kicking some ass. Like there's just something really appealing about that character.
But you want to know? I hate to interrupt, Val, but you want to know why he's like the everyman? Because both of them have cuffed jeans. You know,
see, they had similar
I had cuffed jeans. I can relate to these guys. You know?
I cuffed my jeans today specifically because of Cody. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. It's subconscious. I didn't even think about that.
All right. Yeah. So that's 3 for Cody. So Mike, obviously you didn't play the original Final Fight or don't recall doing it. So Final Fight 3, do you have a favorite character?
Well, I like Hagar just because his name's Mike Hagar.
Great.
Can't argue with that.
Great reasoning, yeah.
It's like I always pick Michelangelo and Ninja Turtles because, of course I'm going to.
He's Mike.
But now, you know what? I do have a little bit of a interesting story. That Final Fight Guy game, I didn't know it was only a rental thing, but I remember going to Blockbuster and seeing it like there all the time, but there was never any copies. They had like 2, and I never got to rent it. But I was like looking at the art and everything, and I was like, this looks kind of cool. Like, so I always wanted to play that game, and I never got to until I think I did emulate it once, and I wasn't too impressed with it. But for a long time, I would say Guy was my favorite character just because of that.
Because you never got to play him.
I wanted to play that game so much, and I never got to. So I'm going to go with Guy on that one just because of that story.
That's good. I like that.
He's the one that got away.
Yeah. Guy that got away, man.
Oh, man. I'm the holdout here. My favorite character is Hagar. I do agree with him being slow.
This podcast is over. This podcast is over.
I mean, if you want to leave, but I'm still running it. He's my absolute favorite, and it's because it's the opposite of the reason you guys gave for Cody. That Cody is someone that just can walk in from the street on a normal day. A guy with a white T-shirt and jeans is nothing amazing to me. But the mayor of a city who is a former wrestler who then walks around the city without his shirt with some retarded suspender to keep his pants up. and mind you, he's still wearing his damn slacks from coming out of the office. And he's got the dad stash and the haircut, and he's there to kick it. And Frank was like, what kind of stance is this? Dude, he's winding up, man. He's waiting to do that one punch.
He's not winding up. He's literally walking like this.
Yeah.
It's all the years. It's all the years of wrestling that his spine is fused, so he can't move.
And even worse is that it's because he's so big and he has the least amount of animation. If you look at him, his top is stationary, and you just see the animation like cut up right here when he's doing this.
It is such a ridiculous design, and that's why I love it. That's why I always play Hagar.
I just want to know, the people who elected him into mayor, were they just afraid of him? Like, if I don't vote for this guy, he's going to beat the shit out of me.
Could have been.
So if you want to go into the backstory, it kind of tells you in the beginning of the attract mode, because Metro City is just riddled with crime. So they elect Mike Hagar to clean up the city. But it goes from there.
So
go
ahead, Frank.
No, I was just gonna say I totally understand why you say that, Bobby, though, because seeing big muscular dudes just beat the crap out of people, it's cool, especially you think about like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s. Is that kind of one of the things that you?
No, definitely, because I love Schwarzenegger's movies growing up, so of course that's what.
Fucking Geno.
What did he do? I missed it.
The Japanese Terminator shirt.
Oh, I saw it earlier. Yeah.
That's awesome, Geno.
Yeah, the Japanese love Schwarzenegger. You guys have seen those crazy ass commercials that he's done in Japan?
Oh yeah, with the genie.
Yeah, it was ridiculous stuff. But anyway,
Love Japanese commercials, man. They're as over the top as they should be.
The other thing I was going to bring up is there's also a lot of people that think that Mike Hagar was inspired by Jesse Ventura, who had run for governor of, what was it, Minnesota? Or was Minnesota? But Jesse Ventura ran for office way after the game had come out. So Mike Hagar was before Jesse Ventura as governor of Minnesota. So he was not inspired by that. Though obviously is probably inspired.
He ran for mayor, though.
Huh?
Didn't he run for mayor? Didn't he run for mayor prior to that?
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things where, like with the Streets of Fire, yeah, it was there, but they weren't aware of it,
Yeah,
but again,
visually. No, go ahead.
Just that we're talking about a guy who's a wrestler, so obviously he was inspired by wrestling. Like Andorra was inspired by Andre the Giant. Supposedly, Mike Hagar was supposed to be inspired by
I thought it was
the wrestler's name.
Dan Severn was one of the inspirations.
Yes, Dan Severn,
especially with that
because of the mustache.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely wrestling inspirations there. And then the other thing we didn't talk about since we're talking about characters' names, not specifically of the heroes, but of the villains. A lot of them were inspired by.
We're not there yet.
Is there a question specifically about that?
I was going to say one thing.
Yeah, it's the very next.
Because it's the memorable villain. Okay, well, then
I just want to add, because we have out of the three for the first game, we've seen Hagar the least in like cameos and guest appearances and stuff like that. Right. And I think that's kind of a disappointment. I love that he was so I mentioned this before, but Capcom Fighting Evolution was the garbage game that had come out instead of what they were doing, which was a 3D art style fighter called Capcom. What was it? Capcom Fighting All Stars, and that was supposed to be Hagar's first appearance outside of the Final Fight games, and that one got canceled, and so they ended up just putting a guy in there with like the alpha Street Fighters, and then there's Street Fighter 1, Street Fighter 2, and Street Fighter 3. So his first proper appearance outside of like the Final Fight stuff and Slime Masters was was Marvel vs. Capcom, and then of course Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I would love to see him be the final character for this last season of Street Fighter 5, because they haven't announced who it is. And I remember George had told us that for Ultra Street Fighter 4, when they were announcing the characters. There was like Elena and Rolento, Hugo, Poison, and there was a rumor that it was actually going to be Jessica, Hagar's daughter, but then it ended up being evil Cammy,
Oh yeah.
Capra. So I would, and the reason that he hasn't appeared in a Street Fighter game is because he's too much like Zangief. And it's like, dude, you have like 5 Shotos in like one game. I think you could begrudge, because Hagar is also more of a brawler as opposed to just a grappler. And I think that they could adapt. Anyway, I'm not going to rehash that stuff, but.
Yeah, I agree though. I would love to see him in an actual proper fighting game. That'd be awesome.
What did you think of him in the Marvel versus Capcom?
I love playing him. Like I think he's a brawler. Like he only has his like pile driver as a grab. Well, and he has like a 360 spin throw, but he's a great character to play as. He's really fun. He busts out his pipe. He has his like body slam as a super move.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really, really fun character to play in Marvel.
I don't think I ever tried him, but he did look cool, like when he was in that game.
Yeah, I was all excited when they had him. Now the closest I can get to him in Street Fighter is having is it Zangief that has his costume?
Yeah, he does.
And 4.
4, yeah.
But he just fights like Zangief.
Right. All right. So moving on to the villains, since we talked about your favorite character.
So we decided that it was Cody in cuff jeans, right? That was the consensus. Okay, good. Just making sure.
Was it the same 3 in the first one? Like the characters that you could play as?
Wait,
Cody, Guy, and Hagar in the first game?
Yeah. Were they the... They were the 3. Okay, cool. Just curious.
Okay, so question 4. Who is the most memorable villain for you? And Val, we'll start off with you.
I was trying to think about this. So the most popular ones I think are probably Saddam and Rolento, just because they're the ones you see the most often in the games. I've never seen, and I've always wanted to see Damned in a game. He's the very first boss you fight before you enter the subway. I think that character design is so cool, and he's like really big and kind of scary looking. So for me, I would pick him just because I would really like to see him in something else.
Very cool. Frank?
I actually, for boss characters, I agree with Val because he's in the intro, the intro attack mode, and that laugh and that whistle are exactly what you think about when you think of the villain. I mean, because he's the first boss, he's a pushover, but like Val was saying, he's got such a cool design. He's got a lot of personality for just, especially, because he like walks around and he just like cackles at you.
Yeah.
He's a dick. And but I think probably the most memorable is going to be Poison, just because she stands out so much because of not only the controversy, but then she's also been in so many games. I mean, her and Hugo kind of, but what's it called? I think Poison stands out just a little bit more. She does have a really cool design, she's like this biker mama with her hat, that crop top, white t-shirt, and then like her long flowing pink hair is just so, I think that long flowing pink hair is really, really cool. And it's really, really iconic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And freaking, booty jean shorts with high heels. It's just such an 80s, it's such an 80s.
That is really an 80s look.
And what's it called? And I never really found her to be like annoying to fight, because she wasn't hard to defeat, but she would do with that jumping attack. She like trying to actually get to hit her was really annoying. And then it's primarily Final Fight 1 villains, but and Dore too, like you guys said, he was so intimidating because when he first pops up, it's in It's at the
Subway.
beginning of
It's in
stage.
the subway.
Oh, stage 2. When you get on the subway, like
Yeah.
halfway through, and he just comes running in, with those hands, and you're just like, ah. And what's it called? But I think all the villains in 1 are so iconic. Even 2P and Simmons or Simmons, depending on the translation, and Jake with his blue vest and his porn stash and his hunched over, like walking over. I always hated 2P and what's the other one? Because it's the palace swap. What are they, Gino? It's 2P, which is the orange and green.
Oh, the punk.
Spike hairs, yeah. And who's the other one? Who's the yellow one?
Shit. With like the yellow cape, right?
Yeah.
I just-
Oh man.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I'll have to look it up when I'm not talking, but yeah, I agree with Val that Damned just because he's the first villain you see, and he's in the attract mode. Because when you get to Sodom, by that point, you already got a feel for the game and everything like that. Rolento sticks out a lot because he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I think I would say, yeah, I kind of agree with you guys, but I kind of want to. I would say the environments are actually all of them are memorable, but I really think like the environment and the way it plays with music, I think that really is like the best villain in the game, because it's so sleazy. Like the music is so like, if you go like you start off right that first area, you all know that song, and then one of my most favorite transitions in that game is you go down the stairs and you go into that little like what is it, like a little
Warehouse.
basement?
It's a warehouse.
Yeah. And then that music changes, and that's one of the most brilliant pieces of video game music I have ever heard. To just how it just blends the action with the music, and it's just so seedy. And then it does it again. I think probably one of the best sequences too is that subway train, when you actually are on the train and it's like moving, and you've got, and that's where I think also like the low level guys are so memorable too, because they swarm you, they don't give you breathing room, and they all look really cool, so yeah, that's what I would say. The music and the environments are really what I think make it sinister more so than the villains. So and they do too, obviously, but that would be my choice. Yeah.
Kind of glad Gino brought up music, only because one of the things I was going to reference earlier was a lot of the villains in the game are named after either musicians or the bands themselves. Like Poison is named for the band Poison. Isn't there a character named Axel?
Yeah, and Slash.
Oh, and then there's Slash. That's
Guns N'
right.
Roses.
Yeah, and obviously Guns N' Roses reference. There's other ones though, aren't there? Because
Guy is named after what's his name from Fugazi, the lead singer or guitarist or whatever. Yeah.
Abigail actually I think is a metal band.
Yeah, you're right. And what's interesting is that it was a female worker at Capcom who was working on the designs and also was responsible for creating the names. And that was the music she was listening to at the time. So that's why she named all those characters after those artists or bands.
Yeah. Well, and the other one is Roxy for Poison's Palace Swap. And then, and the other one for 2P, the yellow one is J. Just
J. That's right.
I was like, damn it.
Not 2J?
Not just one.
2. Just the one J, but 2P.
How about you, Mike? Do you have a favorite villain or anything?
I don't know about favorite, but memorable is just like I said earlier, Andori. Just because he scares the hell out of me. I think that's awesome. Like when a character in any kind of media can evoke that kind of response from me, it's always awesome.
Yeah, like I said,
that's it.
Whenever there's more than one Andori, start breaking out in a sweat, getting that extra quarter ready.
Shit gets real, man.
Dude, that mid-level, like when you're in the bar and he grabs you and takes you to the wrestling ring,
Mhm.
that part is so cool because it's really unexpected. Like you're just going along and you're just like, wait a minute, why am I stop? Wait, why am I going? And you have to fight. What's it called? Yeah, because it's depending on the whether it's one or two players, but if it's one player, you have to fight two of them, and if it's two players, you have to fight three of them, and they're tougher and they have their stupid long health bars.
Health bars, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually have different attacks. Like I think one of them can do a pile driver on you, and the other one can just grab you and shake you. Because the standard on Dory, I don't think can do that, right?
Yeah, standard Andorra can pile drive you.
Oh, he can.
Yeah, actually, and he can do his leg drop. So I just want to go over the Andori family members just really quick. So just regular Hugo Andori, the one that we're used to, which is Andori Jr. Actually, he's the red one, the one that's in all the other ones. His dad Andori is the pink one. F Andori is the yellow one. U Andori is the dark gray one, and G Andori is the blue one. So yeah.
Did you say yellow one?
Yeah, the yellow one was the F Andori.
Oh, okay.
Dory.
Is their family tree like just a straight?
Just the alphabet.
They're all inbred.
All right. So coming down to our final couple questions. This is going back to what I mentioned earlier about. So there was a leak last year for Capcom's release schedule, and on that release schedule was a remake for Final Fight. So the question to you all is, if Capcom is moving forward with a Final Fight remake, what is it that you want to see in the upcoming game? Or what do you not want to see? So, Mike?
Question. I'm glad you started with me. This is a remake of Final Fight 1?
That's our understanding.
Or the rumor of it, anyway?
Yes.
So, I can't answer this question, then. I don't know what I'd want to see.
Okay,
I would
that's fair.
want to see Final Fight characters.
At the very least.
I would kind of like them. I don't know if Final Fight 1 had super moves, but if it didn't, I would like to see. I would like that option, I guess. I don't know. But yeah.
All right.
You can move on to the next person.
How about you, Val? What would you like to see?
Actually, what Mike said. So, I'd like to see a lot of the more complex moves that you get in 3, like a lot of those combos and like the dash run, like that's introduced in 3. I'd like to see that. What I would really love to see is like some kind of an online component that treats it like an arcade game where you can just jump into the game at any point, like a matchmaking service kind of thing. Where it would feel like an arcade, right? Like, you know, that's how arcades work. You just walk up to the machine. If somebody's already playing, then you just throw your quarter in and you join the fun, and you leave when you're done or out of money, and the game continues without you, right? So I'd like to see that, and then maybe just, I guess, mix in some of the other characters, like Lucia and I would say Carlos and Mackie, but I don't really give a shit about that. But yeah, I don't know. I if they just made a straight like remake of 1, I'd probably just be happy with that too, because I think that would be awesome.
I totally agree with Val and Mike. If we actually went straight from Final Fight, 1 to 3, and Final Fight 3 was Final Fight 2, I think it would have done way better. Just because, like, they did so many improvements as far as the mechanics of the combos, adding special moves, adding super moves, adding the run, because they really added so much to it. And in all honesty, Final Fight 3 is not difficult. It's the easiest out of all 3 of them, and I think it's because of those mechanics. So if we were to get those, I would hope that it'd be like a little bit more challenging gameplay wise. I would really love for them to do it kind of similar to what they did with Streets of Rage 4. However, I would still want those really big sprites, maybe a little more detailed. I would like to see more stages added for sure, because they can pull from the future Final Fight games, from like 2 or 3, or they could even just pull from Street Fighter, which I think would be really cool to see. Like Shadowloo Henchman or something. Something. Mechanics wise, yeah. I mean, Final Fight 3, I think it had the best fighting mechanics and just so many moves that you could do. I would say updated music, but those same exact tracks, just kind of like what they did with Final Fight CD.
Just use that one. Just use the CD soundtrack and you're good.
You know what? I do love the CD soundtrack, but there's actually some redone tracks on the Double Impact PS3 version, which I like those versions a little bit better.
Oh, I haven't heard those yet.
Yeah, because on the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle that came out on PS4, I think that's just like the straight arcade original soundtrack, right, Geno?
In the Double Impact, you can do.
Answer the question, Geno. In PS4, the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle, it's just the original arcade soundtrack, right?
I guess so, then, bro.
Well, listen, that's a question I'm asking you, bro. Yes, right? For the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle, that's the original arcade soundtrack, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So then go ahead and say what you're going to say about the...
Oh, no, bro. I already answered the question, bro. Why even go off?
Wait, now I want to know. You can't leave me hanging, man.
Yeah, could you at least tell us, Geno? Because we're curious.
Oh, no. You're talking about the same guy who did Bionic Commando Rearmed also did a soundtrack for Final Fight. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and Double Impact.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Yeah. It's not quite as redone as Final Fight CD, but it is updated, and it's really good there, too.
It is really good. You should play it, Val. Yeah.
Okay, so to elaborate, when we say Double Impact, we're talking about...
a digital release, which it came with Final Fight, and what was the other arcade?
Magic Sword.
Magic Sword.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is another great game if you haven't played it. It's
so
awesome.
This isn't like the Double Impact with for Street Fighter 3.
No.
Okay.
It's literally also called Double Impact.
Right.
It's called
That's why I was asking.
Double Impact.
Yeah.
Okay. So just some clarification on that. All right. So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys. Oh, actually, Geno, I didn't let you get in your part. So what would you want to see in a new Final Fight game?
So I like all the ideas that everyone has here too. I really loved like Streets of Rage 4. Like that was great. Like that company that did it, .mu, and I think it's Lizard Cube who did it. But I don't want them doing Final Fight. I don't want anyone touching it unless it's within Capcom. Like, they're older developers who have had some sort of history with the company, and then to pour in the resources that they've done for like Resident Evil, or, they use like an engine, like I want them to do this completely internally. Because I think if you hand it off to somebody, it may be good, but I think it's going to be, kind of diluted overall, and I don't want that. So it's like I don't want anybody touching Double Dragon anymore because, the Neon was great, but can you do that twice? Probably not, So
I would not want to see a 3D Final Fight. I don't want to see like a 3D beat 'em up. If 3D beat 'em ups, they might as well be hack and slash at that point. But that would not lend itself well to a Final Fight game.
And see, that's one of the questions I was going to ask, because I was assuming that you guys were giving these descriptions based off of a 2D side-scrolling game. Mm-hmm. So, but of course, you're talking about an open 3D where you control a 3D environment, not like a 2.5D where they would use 3D models.
I'd be okay with 2.5D, but well, you know what? And then like Final Fight 3 did have branching paths. I thought that was cool. That'd be cool to do for the Final Fight remake. You know what I mean? Which is where they could add different areas in case they didn't want to add a whole bunch of different stages.
What if it was like a Metroidvania style beat 'em up?
I can't even.
I don't think so.
It's not even Final Fight anymore if you're doing that.
It'd be like a different game.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, cause something else if they're gonna go that route.
I mean, it would be. I think it'd be interesting. I think like you could do it, but it would have to be done right. It could be very much Final Fight, but it would have to be very carefully thought out.
Yeah.
Well, I think
are you talking about like you're leveling up your character as you're progressing?
Well, see, and that's what I'm talking about. Where if you were to do it a Metroidvania style, one, you wouldn't be able to do multiplayer, at least if you keep it to a true Metroidvania, right?
Or actually, and I was going to bring this up, is that if you could do, like, if they did the branching paths, then you could do, like, it goes into a split screen to where each character can, like, progress as far as they want. You know what I mean? But by the end of the stage, they would both have to hook back up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that could be interesting.
It actually reminds me of the Gears of War branching paths, where you go split screen when you play co-op and you go split screen.
Yeah.
You'd have your own branching paths.
Even just even think like Sonic and Tails,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be interesting if you did things in one path that it would affect things in the other character's path. Like you could be able to help each other out, or maybe solve, do some basic puzzle solving with stuff like that. And I mean, you could do a leveling up thing. I mean, something like that worked with Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You could level your characters up. You could do kind of like a River City Ransom where you can buy items and improve your character's abilities as you go through. I mean, I don't think that's a bad route, because that's kind of like in between. It's not a Metroidvania, but it's definitely more open and gives you more options than it does a traditional side-scrolling brawler. But
if they are going to do it like that, I agree with the Scott Pilgrim thing, because one of the things about that game is it's so replayable because you can keep leveling up your character, like even after you go through the game. And the levels are, just beat 'em ups, but as you beat each level, you're on that map world, and then you can decide where you want to go. And I don't know, maybe something like that would be kind of cool.
I don't know. I think they have a lot of options with it, with the way, especially the way indie games have expanded on that scope as far as beat 'em ups, and then even Metroidvanias have used some brawler strategies in the way you play games. I think they could really do something amazing, but I don't know. My thing is like, I know Geno wants it to be done in house. I think if they do it in house, it would be more like a traditional Final Fight. I think the only way you get some of those more hybrid mechanics is if you do hand it off to someone outside of the studio who's developed games like that. So I don't think there's a wrong way to go. It just depends on.
It's called Final Fight Streetwise.
Okay, so between those two options, if you're to play one of those ways that we were talking about, I mean, as long as it's as long as, like Geno said, they invest the money into it in order to develop it properly, and as long as they have a clear idea of what they want to develop. Right now, Capcom's on a good streak for the most part. They've done great with the Resident Evil remakes. Resident Evil 8 looks really good. And I mean, as long as they're smart about it and take their time with it, they can probably make hopefully another great game. But I do worry, like you guys said, about if they decide to go the 3D playing route and turn that into a brawler. I have not yet played a 3D brawler that was memorable. Maybe there have been some decent ones, but none of them stuck with me. And
you don't love the bouncer from
that's
Square?
exactly from Square. That's exactly what I was thinking of, the bouncer. God, I really wanted that game to be good, and it was horrible. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so yeah, I do hope it's more of a 2D beat 'em up at the very least. But I would like to see some of like the branching paths. I love what Val said about treating it arcade style where you can jump in at any time. That would be great. Just drop in your quarter and join up.
Yeah.
I would love. I mean, I really do want so much of that original experience still translated into this remake. You know what I mean? I don't want them to be like, okay, now, Guy, he's in a band now. I don't want them to start adding all this like backstory shit like that already wasn't there.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Like, keep those characters simple. But just sprinkle in like at least those Street Fighter references, because they're so much ingrained now. but keep that music pretty simple. I think if anything, it'd be really cool, kind of like what they did with Double Dragon Advance, to where they had like end of stage like stills that kind of progress the story, because kind of like what Mike said, knowing the background of those characters, the enemies and stuff like that. I think that's cool. I would love to see a Final Fight movie, like just animated movie, because
animated would be awesome.
we kind of got it with the Street Fighter USA series.
That was that one episode.
Yeah, it's called The Final Fight.
Oh, that's right. Oh man,
you remember Geno? He's like, I have nothing to add.
It was a show.
All right. Well, before we get to our final question, you guys want to elaborate or come back and add to anything else?
Let's talk about Final Fight Streetwise.
It's all you, man.
I think something needs to be said about how brilliantly stupid it is. Like you can't make it up that it exists in the state that it does. Like it's so great. It's so great. Like I want to go back and finish it so bad. I mean, there's going to be the day where I do that, but I mean, it's so wild that it passed any of the, the quality control checks, or maybe there was none. But you should play it purely for the laughs. I mean, it's so great. You can't believe what's happening, like. Yeah.
So what do you think is the worst aspect of that game?
I don't think they're bad aspects. I think it's just too hilarious to, like, it's not negative. It's like the best, worst game you've ever played. Like, it's, and you don't want it to end because it's just too hilarious. Like
for me, have you guys ever played God Hand?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay, so God Hand was made by Clover Studios, the same studio that did Beautiful Joe and Okami and what was the other one I was thinking of? What was the other one they did, Geno? Beautiful Joe, Okami, or was that it? Was it just those three games?
That's it. And okay. God Hand, that's it.
Okay, so God Hand it's a 3D brawler, but it's done really well, and it's also over the top. Okay, so Streetwise is an attempt to do that poorly because it tries to introduce these over-the-top characters while also looking very bland and too much like leaning into seriousness because the environments are very bland. You walk into this bar and it doesn't even look like it's made like there's not a wood bar, wood floors. It's just brown. It's made of brown. And then when the guys, when you attack them, it's like, oh, like these over the top reactions that don't match with the way the rest of the game is. Because who are you playing as again, Geno? Because isn't it like Cody's brother or something like that?
Kyle Travers.
Kyle Travers, okay. And so it's just this, he has no personality. The fighting mechanics, they work, but not like you expect them to. Like you push a button and do something, and then something happens, sometimes in your favor, but not what you were intending. And it's just one of these things where, like Geno said, at what point did Capcom USA look at this game and go, oh yeah, this is perfect, everyone's going to love this? You know, it's just like, man, it's just like one of those things where they just thought the name would make them the money back. And nope, quality was severely lacking.
One thing I will give it is it did have secret fights against Cammy, and who was the other one, Geno?
I don't remember.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, Cammy's in there, so there's that Street Fighter reference peppered in. Of course, it's not like a canon appearance, at least not to my understanding. She's just like a secret fight that you can go in.
I'll challenge all of you, minus Bobby because Bobby's played it, to play it and see if you don't start laughing within the first 10 minutes, and then like how you'll continuously laugh through like say 30 minutes. So like play like 30 minutes and see and count how many times you laugh. Wildly, you will.
Moving on to our final question and our most important question tonight. And I think a lot of us are going to have the same answer on this one. Which game is your favorite game in the Final Fight series? And I'll start off. I think it's pretty obvious that my favorite game in the Final Fight series is going to be Final Fight, the original, and of course the arcade version. That is the one that caused me to fall in love with the series. That is the one that I lined up my quarters for. And that is the one that whenever I get a chance to play Final Fight, that's the one I usually throw on first. I don't go back and play. I definitely don't go back and play 2. I very rarely go back and play 3. And but I do want to go and play Mighty Final Fight, because who knows, maybe that'll change my mind and that'll be number 1. But Final Fight Arcade. Who wants to go next?
Final Fight 3? Because I don't have another answer. I want to play Final Fight 1 with one of you guys sometime soon. Though.
We'll play it on the arcade, Mike, when you come over.
All right, cool.
I agree with Mike, actually. I mean, 1 is very iconic, but playing it, I'd rather play 3 just because of all the added moves and mechanics, and it's more fun to play overall. It's definitely not as memorable, but like going in and playing. Actually, and another thing that's really cool about Final Fight 3 is that it came out with the auto 2 play, where it has a computer-controlled second player.
Oh, that's right.
If you were by yourself, granted the AI was really terrible and usually died before you got to the end of the game anyway, but it was just a cool feature, I thought. And I don't know, just with Lucia, Hagar, and Guy, like just playing as each one of those, you can go back. Like that one, I'll definitely play all of them because I like doing their different moves and their super moves and stuff like that, because you can change the way you play it.
Mm-hmm. Say, I had a question about 3. So if you're 2 players, you have to share. There's probably limited credits, right, in the game? Like how many times you can continue?
Yeah, but I mean, you won't even get to a continue, dude. It's so easy. Plus, you start with 5 lives.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that's ever come up when I've played that game.
That's
So
very
I honestly
generous.
don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 3 is like the one I've played the least. So I just wonder how it works on that. So for me, it's the first one, but I have the most nostalgia for the Sega CD version. Because I bought it, it was pretty. The Sega CD was pretty much dead, so they were just kind of discounting the consoles, and the games were like $10 each at the time. So that was one of the ones I picked up at a pawn shop, and the reason I love that one so much is because I think that's the game that felt like I actually had the arcade experience at home. It does. I mean, if you compare the 2 like side by side, obviously the arcade is way nicer looking and more colorful. But not having that comparison right in front of me, it looked just like the arcade and it sounded just like it. I love the new soundtrack the rearranged soundtrack for that game. I actually, because it's all Red Book audio, so you could actually take the CD and put it in a CD player and listen to it. And I used to do that for that disc, is just listen to the tracks over and over. It's cut voice acting. So the intro to the game in the arcade, it's just text, right? You just read the text. But in the Sega CD version, they have voice actors do it.
And it's got slightly extended scenes, right?
Yeah, I'm actually showing it back there. So you see the map, right? Just like in the arcade. But then you see like a picture of like downtown Metro City, and there's like people beating the shit out of each other. And then there's the scene where they show Mike Hagar and Jessica's picture on the desk, and you just see a knife like fly through the screen and stab the picture because they're gonna take revenge on Mike Hagar for trying to destroy the Mad Gear Gang. But yeah, there's the voiceovers. I mean, it adds so much to it, and it's so cheesy, but it's so great. Especially the ending. It beat the game if you can, because it's hysterical how bad the voice acting is in it.
It's not like Mega Man X4.
I wouldn't know. It's actually easier to play that one than the arcade because there's a limitation on how many characters can be on the screen. So if you're playing as one player, you can only have a maximum of 4 people to fight. Yeah. Whereas in the arcade, I mean, they can just keep throwing people at you over and over. There's no limitation, and it's way harder in the arcade to do to play the game. But yeah, and everything's there, right? You get 2-player, you get Guy, you get in the Super Nintendo version, they actually cut out Roxy and Poison, and they throw these 2 stupid.
Sid, 2 more musical references.
Yeah, these 2 stupid-looking characters to replace them. But you get Roxy and Poison in that version.
And no industrial stage.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. They cut out the stage in that. But yeah, that's my favorite version of the game. It's not the arcade. It's not the best one, but for me, it's my personal favorite.
I want to commend you, Val, because the soundtrack for that is so great.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be at the desk where they were like, okay, we like what we have, but we need you. Who are you? Oh, you're the janitor. Okay, great. Can you vocalize over this small piece here and then do it again over here? And then it's so weird. It's like, out of nowhere, they're playing it, and then the guy's like, oh, it's like, well, that was a choice. All right. And then, at the end, he's like, yeah, good. It's so ridiculous. But it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Good.
I was going to say, so remember that transition from the very beginning to the warehouse? There's a piece of music that I swear they stole straight from the Golden Child. With the horn, so it's like...
Yeah, that's the warehouse scene.
Child, dude, that's straight from the Golden Child.
That's debatable.
No.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to think about it. Like, I can't even remember the music.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go on to YouTube and pull up samples of each one and have them side by side.
So yeah, I think my favorite one. Gosh, it's tough. Nothing takes that arcade, I think, but I think that's kind of a cop out. Gosh, I really. Let me go in defense of Super Nintendo. It's not my favorite. Obviously, I would just play the arcade, but I will say, and actually, I was just telling my nephew this today. I was showing him Street Fighter and saying this was like high living in 1991. If you had Street Fighter, you were like living the arcade at home. But I think when I played Final Fight for the first time in the fall of 1991, I thought to myself, this is the arcade at home, and I loved that port. I loved it. I mean, because I didn't have the machine right there next to compare. Just like you're saying, Val, so it was like monumental, that game, in the way that ushered in the era for me of, okay, this is what we have going forward, is that we're going to have these really pretty damn close ports, and then it was like furthered again even more by Street Fighter 2. When you saw that, you said, oh my God,
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably one of the most memorable things about that early, well, no, there was a lot of memorable things about that early launch of Super Nintendo, but that was definitely one of them. It's like, here's what's coming, But yeah, I would say if I had to, nail it down, of course, the arcade version. Yeah, for one.
All right. This is awesome. As usual, it's always good to hear you guys and your opinions, especially on stuff that we grew up with together. And even Mike, as a person who's on the outside looking in.
I mean, it's not like I'm totally not familiar with the series. I just didn't play as many games as the rest of you, but I still acknowledge that that's probably one of my favorite beat 'em ups. Like, it's definitely the funnest one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know there's it's funny, I was having a conversation with one of the guys in our Discord, and I told him I needed to, because we're chatting about doing a podcast later on another topic about well, I need to head out because I'm going to go do a podcast. And he asked me what the topic was, and I said Final Fight, and he said, "What's Final Fight?" And I was like, "Oh Jesus!"
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, you know, Streets of Rage, right?" And he goes, "Well, I know Streets of Rage 4." I says, "Okay, well, it was Streets of Rage before Streets of Rage, and it was better, at least the arcade version." So. Yeah, there's to me, surprisingly, there's actually a lot of people who may not be as familiar with the series. Like people from our generation, yes, but some of these younger kids that are learning about beat 'em ups because of games like Scott Pilgrim and Streets of Rage and Double Dragon Neon. This is one that they're missing out on, and that's probably why Capcom has a remake on its list. Let's just hope it lives up to what we want, or at least even part of what we want.
Yeah.
So. All right, but with that being said, final statements before we close out? Anyone? All right.
I want them to release the soundtrack on vinyl,
Yeah, that'd be great.
but Final Fight CD. I mean, the original wouldn't be bad, but or even just the double impact version. Like the either version of the updated soundtrack would be amazing to have on vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some good music.
I disagree. I want that original version, unfettered, untouched, vinyl, and then follow it up with the rearranged.
Yeah, the janitor mix.
The janitor mix.
So I think I need to add one last thing. I think Geno and I apparently need to play Final Fight Revenge.
Oh God.
Because he
no.
raves about it so much, yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, what are you doing? Why are you not playing it now? Like, have you seen the video of it? Like,
no, I've played it.
It's amazing. How can you not think it's amazing?
You know why? It's a lot of it is just because it's that era of like hideous polygons that I cannot stand. I can't go back to shit like that, man. Like Street Fighter EX is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like playing EX is actually kind of fun. It's a competent game to play, but it's just looking at it, I can't stand it.
No, I love it. I love like how like E grade Final Fight experience became with like Revenge. You know, like it's so like they literally. I mean, you know, if they got the janitor to do the soundtrack for the other one, you know, they got like the passerby, you know, for
the catering boy to to code the game engine,
Exactly. So that'll have to be, you know, we should stream that one night. That would be really hilarious.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah.
So definitely something to do.
All right, it's a date.
Well, before we say more things we regret, let's go ahead and close it out. So. Thank you guys for coming in tonight and chatting up Final Fight. As usual, it's a pleasure chatting with you all. We will be back later on with some episode. We got plans in the works, but it's very hard to make time to record everything. So for sure, something will be coming out next. But for now, please enjoy this episode and make sure to come back on our next one. Otherwise, we will see you guys next time. Bye.
I regret nothing.
Bye. Thank you.